Chapter 4. "That's where the sea monster lives," Chelsea cried. "Can we go inside?" Skipper asked. "Just a second." Barbie reached into her beach bag and pulled out a flashlight. She flicked it on. "All set. Let's explore." The sisters entered the cave with caution. Barbie shone the light around the walls, the floor, and the ceiling of the cave. Nothing moved. Barbie heard the drip, drip, drip of water from the back of the cave. "See any sea monsters?" she asked. "No," Skipper said. "Not that I ever really thought there would be." "Wait!" Chelsea cut her off. She rushed toward a heap of seaweed just inside the cave entrance. "Seaweed!" she shouted, holding up a clump. "Maybe this is what the sea monster eats." Stacy nodded. "And did anyone notice those weird rocks on that ledge in the far corner?" she asked. Chelsea's eyes widened. She dropped the seaweed and ran over to the rocks. "These aren't rocks," she said. "They're sea monster eggs." Skipper rolled her eyes at Barbie. "They're just really big round rocks, right?" she asked under her breath. Barbie shrugged. They looked like huge rocks to her, but then again, if Nikki and Teresa were right, the sea monster was huge too. Chelsea turned to Barbie. "Can I take one home?" she asked. "It'll hatch and I'll have my very own sea monster. A sea monster would be a great pet." Barbie laughed. Leave it to Chelsea to want a pet sea monster. "I think we should leave those here," she said. "Where would we keep a sea monster anyway?" "In the pool," Chelsea said. Skipper raised an eyebrow. Chelsea crossed her arms. "It's a big pool." "But what if the sea monster comes back and the eggs were gone?" Skipper asked. "The sea monster would be so sad." Chelsea sighed. "Fine," she said. "I guess I don't need another pet. I've got Honey." She put her arms around her puppy. "Cheer up," Honey barked. "I'm much cuddlier than a sea monster anyway." She licked Chelsea's cheek. Chelsea giggled. "We still need to figure out what Teresa and Nikki saw this morning," Skipper said. "If it really was a sea monster, this has to be its cave," Stacy said, looking around. Then she snapped her fingers. "I know what we should do. Let's have a stakeout. We'll watch the cave and wait for the sea monster to come back." Chapter 5. "Okay, a stakeout," Barbie said, taking charge. "Let's get to work. Stacy, you scout out a good spot to watch the cave. Make sure we can see the entrance, but no one can see us." "Will do," Stacy said. She whistled for Rookie, and they started to explore. Barbie turned to Chelsea and Skipper. "We need to get as much seaweed as we can. We'll use it to draw the sea monster in." Chelsea stood up straight and gave Barbie a salute. "I'm on it," she said. She ran down to the water with Honey at her heels. Skipper and DJ strolled after her. "What about me? What about me?" Taffy barked. Barbie knelt down and patted her. "You have to be quiet. No barking. It might scare away the sea monster." "Sure thing," Taffy barked. Then she nodded. "Oops, won't happen again." Barbie ruffled Taffy's fur. Really, sometimes it was almost as if Taffy was trying to tell her something. "I got the seaweed," Chelsea called. She came running up the beach and dropped it on the sand in front of the cave. Skipper, her arms full of seaweed, wasn't far behind. Barbie nodded. "Okay, let's start making a trail of it from the water to the cave. Then we all can gather more." Chelsea, Skipper, and Barbie were laying the trail when Stacy and Rookie came back. "I found a good spot to watch the cave," Stacy told her sisters. "It's behind that rock over there." She lifted a finger and pointed. Barbie and Chelsea looked. A large boulder sat on the sand just outside the cave. "It's close but hidden. We can still see the cave's entrance through the fog," Stacy added. "Perfect," Barbie said. All four sisters gathered more seaweed and finished making the seaweed trail. Then, calling to the puppies, they hurried behind the rock. Stacy was right. From there they had a great view of the cave. They would see anyone or anything that tried to approach it. "We have to be very quiet," Barbie said. At first, the sisters and puppies kept a careful eye on the cave. Nothing happened. No one came near. They didn't hear weird noises. They didn't see anything crawling through the sand. Behind the boulder, the girls couldn't feel the wind anymore. The sun was peeking through the fog. It felt good on their faces. One by one, the younger sisters and their puppies fell asleep. Soon, Barbie was the only one awake. But that was fine. If the sea monster came, she would surely see it. Chapter 6. Barbie heard the sound of footsteps. She frowned. Footsteps? Did sea monsters have feet, or did they have flippers? She poked her head above the rocks. "There you are," Teresa called. "We've been looking all over the beach for you." Next to her, Nikki held up a tray full of cups. "We brought treats," she said. Stacy bolted awake. What did I miss? She asked. Skipper mumbled. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. Chelsea yawned and stretched. Is it tomorrow already? She said. Not yet, Barbie told her. So did you find the sea monster? Teresa asked. She handed out drinks to the sisters. A latte for Barbie, a berry smoothie for Skipper, pink lemonade for Stacy, and milk for Chelsea. Skipper looked guiltily at Chelsea and Stacy. She said, I think we fell asleep. The sun felt so good, Chelsea explained, and we were kind of sleepy, Stacy added. Nothing's better than a good nap, DJ barked. The best, Honey seconded that. Don't worry, Barbie said. I stayed awake the whole time. No sign of the sea monster. Really? Chelsea sighed. Oh, I almost forgot, Teresa said. The cafe had good Wi-Fi, so we did some research on sea monsters. I wrote it all down on this scrap of paper I found there. She handed the paper to Skipper. Skipper scanned the piece of paper. Stacy and Chelsea crowded around her. Barbie watched her sisters reading the paper. Then something caught her eye. She leaned forward. There was a picture on the back of the paper and some writing. Teresa's scrap paper was actually a flyer for an event. Barbie plucked the paper from Skipper's hands. Hey, Skipper said, I was just getting to the good part. Exactly, Barbie said. She flipped the paper over to show it to her sisters. This is the good part. Viking Voyages, the flyer said. This week only. Under the words was a picture of a Viking boat. It had a long tail, a long neck, and a wide open mouth. Chelsea's mouth dropped open. That boat looks like a sea monster, Stacy finished for her. Barbie held the paper up to Nikki and Teresa. Does this look like the sea monster you saw this morning? She asked them. Teresa gasped and covered her mouth. That's it, she said. That's exactly it. Barbie read the rest of the flyer. It's a full-size model of a Viking boat. They run hour-long cruises every night. The cruises leave from Pier 10. Pier 10? Nikki said. That's just down the beach. Come on, Skipper said. Let's go check it out. Let's go, TJ barked to the other puppies. The girls and the puppies raced down the beach. They rounded the bend, and up ahead, docked at Pier 10, was the sea monster ship. Nikki put her hands on her hips. You have to admit, it really does look like a sea monster. It totally does, Skipper agreed. So, that's a sea monster, DJ barked. I told you it was nothing like a mailman, Taffy added. I guess there wasn't really a sea monster in that cave after all, Stacy said. But what about the seaweed, Chelsea said, and the monster noise? Barbie shrugged. The seaweed was probably swept into the cave by the tide. Skipper nodded. That's right. There was a storm last night. I bet it pushed the seaweed higher up the beach than usual. Barbie went on, and the monster noise might have been... A low, mournful sound echoed over the water from the ship. Stacy grabbed Barbie's arm. That's it, she said. The monster noise. Barbie laughed. It's the Viking ship's foghorn. The puppies started howling too. Ow! Ow! Look at me, I'm a sea monster, DJ barked. But what about the eggs? Chelsea asked. Barbie gave her sister a hug. I'm sorry, they were probably just rocks. Chelsea frowned. Rats, she said. I really wanted it to be real. Barbie smiled. I know what might cheer you up, she said. Follow me. Barbie led her sisters and her friends over to the Viking ship. A man stood at the front of the boat. His thick red hair was braided and he wore a helmet on his head. Are you a Viking? Chelsea asked. You can call me Eric the Wavefarer, he said. Can I ask you a question? Did you have the ship out this morning? Barbie asked. Around 8 o'clock? Eric nodded. Yes, we did. We had to turn back. Too foggy. In fact, we even saw a boat that had run aground around that bend there, and we had to drag it on shore. That's when we knew we should head back to the harbor. Ran aground? Skipper repeated. I bet that's what made the wide track. Barbie and Taffy slipped away for a few minutes while her sisters and friends were talking to Eric. They were back before anyone noticed. Maybe we didn't get to find a real sea monster, Barbie said when she rejoined them, but tonight we can ride in a real Viking boat. She held out her hands. In them were 6 red and white striped tickets for the Viking cruise, one for each of them. Hooray, Chelsea said. She clapped her hands together. We're going to ride a sea monster. Hey, Eric, Stacy called. Will you let me help with the ropes? Sure thing, Eric said. You look strong. This is so cool, Skipper said. She smiled at her sisters. Vikings are awesome. As they started back down the beach, Nikki put her arm around Barbie's shoulders. You're the best, she said. A great friend, a great sister, and a great detective. Teresa didn't say anything. She was staring out at the ocean. Far away on the horizon, she could just make out a shape in the fog, a shape with a long tail and a long neck, and following the large shape, she would have sworn she saw two smaller shapes. Baby sea monsters? Teresa shook her head. No one would ever believe her.